All right, I think this is pretty much what we'll see from attendance, which is good because we have enough people around. Skarbek, do you want to take the Henry's item?
Yeah, we did a test on the 2nd yesterday. There was a slight issue that flared up again regarding the secrets that prevented us from being able to authenticate to the database upon promotion. As Henry noted, it appears to be a problem when he was attempting to resolve the initial issue. The second part of this is that the Geo Postgres service ends up being disabled. So when we come back around to demoting the node, our documentation is simply incorrect about this, and he's got an issue to address this. Other than that, the promotion went just as fine as it has been in the past. So we still have a few things that we need to work on at this point, but hopefully nothing major for a single node instance at least.
Cool. Skarbek, your item is next on the blocker side.
Perfect. So this is mostly a notification that there's going to be a little bit more strain on the staging environment. The delivery team has an OKR. We're going to be doing some testing of the ability to perform rollbacks and potentially some automation around that. So because of this, staging is going to be probably blocked at certain points of time so they can perform some testing. So if we need to perform some testing, we're probably going to want to coordinate with them at certain periods of time just to make sure that we're not testing on top of each other, obviously.
And I think also before the ACE, the geo team is also testing the maintenance mode. So this will be a little bit more, conflicts here. So.
Geo will probably not do another staging test. I think we are probably just done with it.
Oh, that's cool.
Because everything worked, of course.
You said for a while or at all? Sorry, I didn't catch that. That you won't do another test.
Yeah, Geo will most likely not be doing another test in the coming few weeks because the one that we did was successful.
So.
Yeah, cool. Well, our rollback was successful and we are repeating it. Can you better that?
You can put it in maintenance mode while you're trying to roll back and then see what happens.
That's actually not the worst idea. I know that you're half joking, but actually that's not the worst idea. Cool. Skarbek, you have the discussion point.
I'm going to stop putting my name next to things. Brent has been trying to get a conversation started about this. So I created an issue to help jumpstart the conversation because infrastructure is going to need guidance on how we need to build out the secondary site multi-node configuration. We all know we have a single node. We all know that that's not sufficient. We all know that there's costs involved that Maren has added another discussion point on. Both options that we've discussed using our existing tooling plus the use of the GitLab environment tooling are viable options, but someone needs to make a decision as to how we move forward with this. There are pluses and minuses to both that I briefly highlighted, but I probably could have done a better job when I wrote the issue. And both of these will involve a lot of infrastructure time and effort to deploy no matter which decision we go with. So it would be wise if we could figure out what we need to make this decision as soon as possible so that we are not constantly blocked in trying to progress forward the purpose of this working group. I would appreciate guidance either from Maren or Brent to help guide the conversation as necessary because I'm not sure what to do outside of opening an issue and plopping opinions.
Okay, so first thing, we have 10 people in this meeting. Can people take notes a bit while we are talking? Because it's hard to actually manage the meeting plus take notes plus answer questions. So I appreciate help. Scarby, this is a really good question, and I can make a decision on the spot. That's not the problem. It's just that no one is going to like that decision. So I think we need to talk a tiny bit more about it. I do have a couple of questions for you that we might be able to answer here in this call. First of all, has Geo used Get at all so far?
Yes.
So you have experience with that?
Yeah, maybe Nick, can you give a short summary here?
Yeah, sure. So I work on Get. I built in the geo functionality in there. So we use it currently to build a couple of different 1K environments based on the reference architecture and on the 3K reference architecture as well. So I don't know how much you know about. I can go like it. It can currently build 2 separate environments and tie them together, but it controls both those environments. Like it knows everything about both of those environments.
And what's necessary to happen for it to only build out the secondary site without controlling it?
So, well, that would just be normal Get usage. It wouldn't do any of the geo work. It would just build a reference architecture of whatever scale we want. And at that point, you would then need to add the geo part because it needs to know about the primary so that it can correctly configure the 2. Which, because it's staging, we wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, makes sense. And what kind of resources do you need? Like, let's say hypothetical, that we ask the Geo team to actually help out with the setup of Get, right? Like to build out a secondary site. What kind of access would you need? Like you would probably need access to the staging GCP account, I'm guessing, to boot up the nodes, but what else?
To be honest, that's largely it. We just need a service account to get into the GCP project, and then we set up SSH access within the project. And then that's pretty external IP address, that kind of like they're the only things that we need from GCP, and then the tool does the rest.
Okay. So Nick, is this the other Nick, engineering manager Geo Nick? Is this something that we could collaborate together on? I can tell you right now that it's impossible to get infrastructure time to do everything. So if we provide the service account and the base things that you need to build out the secondary site, and then we take over the part of actually configuring, right, like the primary and the secondary sites, and like work with you to figure out exactly what is necessary, that would help out a lot move this forward, and it wouldn't drag us in the direction of needing to figure out whether we can even use Get within the environment we have. Sure, would that be even an option?
Yeah, I definitely think it would. I guess I want to ask Nick W here as well what he thinks, since I think we'd also be leaning pretty heavily on his knowledge and work with Git to spin all that up.
Okay.
Spinning up a new environment is very easy within Get, just for simple. Like once we get the service account, it's really just running a couple of commands and waiting. So.
All right. I think the interesting part there will be to figure out also like whether we can fit this in our infrastructure as it is now, Skarbek, right? Like that's going to be like the larger challenge. But if 2 sides are working on this, right, like Get, Nick, and someone from infra knows how to tie this in, then it becomes significantly easier decision to make on just let's use what we ship to people.
But I think we shouldn't underestimate that part as well. Like this is I personally, from the product perspective, would very much like us to use something that we also recommend to our customers, because then even if we have a rotation, we do this regularly, I think it's just, so good on many different levels. Plus, and I think this is maybe a long-term item, if the 3K user reference architecture is actually sufficient to run the workload of the staging environment, that is an indication of some larger interesting infrastructure projects on how to set up GitLab.com and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think this also provides a good a good opportunity to maybe use Git in somewhat maybe more of a real world situation, because maybe there will be a lot of customers who already have a multi-node Geo setup or a multi-node GitLab setup that's not Geo, where they want to add Geo to it. So we can maybe make some improvements to Git to accommodate that scenario. Whereas right now it's kind of like, yeah, you're either setting up a single installation or you're kind of doing the entire Geo setup, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, that sounds exactly probably like the most common case, actually, right? Like they already have something that they configured within whatever they use. Skarbek, how do you feel about this? I don't know whether you would be doing that work, but like from the infra side, like from someone who needs to connect things.
I think being able to connect things together will probably be the easiest part of this entire ordeal. So I shy away from using Get simply because it's not something the rest of the infrastructure team is aware of. And I guess we need to determine who's going to be the responsible party for maintaining this long term. If we use Get, you're going to have a lot of infrastructure team members who don't know anything about it, how these nodes are configured, and they may not even have the necessary SSH keys because of all of our existing tooling, which uses Chef right now and Terraform to spin all that stuff up, is well known within that team. And there are established patterns that they utilize for modifying and managing that infrastructure. There's going to be a large learning curve to distinguish between what is set up between Get and what is set up using our existing infrastructure. And I think that's going to be a point of contention within infrastructure. I don't know how that would be very well handled or met with expectations within various team members. So that's the only reason why I shy away from Get. Otherwise, I welcome this and I would highly encourage it because it'll be interesting to see what we could do here and maybe transitioning from our current existing infrastructure methods to using this full Ansible setup entirely.
So go ahead.
Yeah, does it make sense to invite Grant Young to be in this group because Get, he is the main or DRI of that tool, and he basically implemented all of the Get stuff. So not all. I mean, there are other QE members, but Grant is the DRI of this tool, and this, to be honest, this will be the moving forward. We want to make this a standard automation for deployment for all GitLab. Yeah.
No, that also makes sense. I think Nick currently can be that representative while we make the decision, right? Like you can advise us, Nick, and then we can pull Grant when necessary. But that's a good idea. Skarbek, on to the infrastructure side. I'm not calling the shots here, fortunately, whatever you want to say it. But this is one of the opportunities where infra has a chance to start at ground zero because Get is not out yet, really. It's beta, which means if we get involved right now, everyone will learn over time. And that would also mean that we'll improve it for everyone else. So that's going to be an easy thing to solve, I think. The hard part is going to be like, for me at least, it seems like, how do we actually get something that is made to manage the whole life cycle, not manage the whole life cycle because we have other things that manage the life cycle?
I think there's going to be a wide variety of opinions about this, which is why when I created the issue, I did not want to ping the entire infrastructure team to begin with. I wanted to make sure that we had something hard, some whether it be a decision or not, something concrete that we could have down in this issue first. Because there's a lot of stuff that our Chef infrastructure currently does that I don't know if Get handles appropriately. You know, we do a lot of configurations. There's our own tooling that we put in place on all the servers. And there's all of our SSH keys and etc. Like there's a lot of stuff that we have already built inside of Chef, and we would have to supplement Get to ensure that infrastructure has the ability to manage.
We'll continue talking in the issue, but I would really, really like us to take that issue and make it into what is necessary for us to run Get, and then get a gap analysis, and then ship that to whoever owns Get and tell them this is why we can't use it. And in the interest of time for the for the disaster working group, we will move on with whatever we move on with, unless you help us out get this in now, right? That's an approach.
And that sounds very reasonable to me.
Yeah, I agree. And those can be the feature request to the GET to enhance the GET too.
Yeah.
I think it's important though to separate these two things, even though they're very related, right? I think the difficulty here is to decide on the tooling, right, to actually create this environment, right, that runs geo in this instance, but Get can do non-geo configurations as well. That's sort of the thing that we need to determine. And then on top of that, right, this is where geo functionality actually kicks in, is to say, hey, we have a 3K reference architecture. Now we actually need to do the failover, right? How do we do that, right? And I think this is, for geo, or for this working group, probably the more directly aligned with what we're trying to prove, right? But the other thing is, I think, a great thing to discuss now, because it also highlights how these things are interconnected, right? It's like for our customers. The difficulty may not even be executing the geo commands. It may be setting all of this up, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the case, Fabian, will be made easier than to say that the primary site also needs to be rebuilt in Get in order for us to get access to those commands that will allow us to manage the life cycle of a geo installation, right? So that's also another transition. And I know it's not strictly related to geo right now, but it is. It kind of is.
Yeah, kind of is.
Half of the work is actually setting up geo, configuring it.
Very optimistic.
Okay, well, I'm being optimistic today, so you get a rare opportunity to see that. Action items from here. Let's, Skarbek, maybe like summarize some of this discussion in the issue, and I'll get an item with Brent tomorrow to discuss exactly what we need to do here and how. And it would be good, Nick, and to involve you in that as well, async obviously, to just like see what kind of time commitment we are talking about here from geo side, and we can hopefully find a common ground.
Marin, I'm curious if it would benefit anyone in infrastructure if we had someone from the Get team to introduce Get to the infrastructure team in one of the DNA meetings.
That sounds like a great idea, Skarbek. Like a demo of sorts would be even better, rather than someone showing a map. Yeah. But someone like, hey, this is how you stand up environments. Look, you might need it to test GitLab.
Yeah.
I mean, there was the beta announcement today, right? So that would be a great opportunity to demo it to our infrastructure department.
Yeah. And then they can criticize it all they want, but they can also then help make it better.
Well, if Chef is going away, they need to help make it better, because we don't want to have two things of Ansible running everywhere. Where is this beta announcement? I'll try to...
and what's happening at GitLab.
Okay.
Actually, that is probably the best pitch you can make in the infra department. This is how you get rid of Chef. Join this meeting. I think you'll get probably the largest attendance in history of infrastructure. All right, those are the action items. So Skarbek. Maybe we can start with item number 2. I see Davis is in here, so I just wanted to kind of maybe cover some things. If necessary, if not, Davis, feel free to call out and say, no, everything is written down. Or you can also tell us go or no go with 3K architecture and staging. That would be the most useful thing.
Yeah, so I just joined because me and Andrew were talking about this, and I guess I'll link issue 34 in here. Or did you already link that in here? Okay, yeah. So in that issue, we're going over all the different, trying to go over all the different components of disaster recovery, because we're going to need to put this in the plan for next year, because it's definitely going to be over and above our forecast. So we're basically trying to figure out how much each component is going to cost. So I think the main questions is for each of those major components, like how many warm nodes are we going to need in the region? Like how many web servers do we need to fail over? How many database nodes, all that kind of thing. And then for the big costing items, for example, Gitly, if we can't separate out paid users and things like that, are there other things we can do to reduce that cost? So basically just trying to lay out like what the biggest cost services are that we'll probably have to bring down. And then for the ones like web and API that probably aren't as big of a deal, just like figuring out how many warm nodes we actually need to get a better idea of the cost. So yeah, we can talk about that here, but we can also put it in that issue. I'm not sure what the best way to get that information is.
So I guess like what I want to find out in this call, and we're running its time almost, is would a 3K architecture in staging cause a problem for infra right now? So we can, like 3K architecture has a list of nodes, exactly like what kind of type you need and so on. So if we can get unblocked on that, then we can talk in parallel about the larger production story.
Yeah,
or I misunderstood. I could also misunderstand the discussion that you were taking earlier.
No, I mean, I think we can do both. Is that the other issue where it was, how much was it, like 2,000 a month or something? I don't remember now. But,
so that issue has like the discussion about the, did I make a wrong, I linked a wrong issue, I'm sorry. This was a wrong issue. Ah, annoying. This one is for production, and this one is for staging. We have too many issues, people. Did you know that? But I think that was the original issue I linked had the start of that same discussion. Should we go with 2K or 3K architecture for staging, and would that be sufficient?
Yeah, if I remember, I think that one should be fine. I can talk to Joey about putting it in plan just from today on. Yeah, well, we were trying to figure out the timeline because, for instance, if we needed to make major changes in Gitly, I guess my question was like, does it even make sense to start testing now if we're not going to be able to roll anything out because it'll get blocked by other things in production?
That's a good point.
So that was my.
It does make sense.
That's a good point.
I'm strongly in favor of having all of these operational and testing things figured out well ahead of time, even if the product development, if that is the case, lags behind. I think we learned so much about many other things that I think it is well worth it. But that's my 2 cents. It is very likely though, and I need to talk to Mark Wood, the PM for Gitly, that we need significant feature development to reduce the cost of Gitly. I think overall, which then will enable the DR side as well. And if that is not possible, we may want to resort to selective syncing and some configuration bits. But I'm cautioning here that I don't know yet what the best solution for this is. I know what the problem is, and I think that's well understood. But I will need to do more research also in collaboration with those teams, because that may be something that, for example, Geo shouldn't actually handle, right? It's better kept in Gitly, or we don't know yet. So I think, but the question at hand for me would be, can we deploy a 3K reference architecture in staging, which is I think $2,000 or something like that a month. For the foreseeable future for our testing endeavors.
Yeah, I think that should be fine. I don't think we'll get any questions asked about that, so I can just talk to Joey about that for now. And then once we know when we're going to deploy to production, we can also put that in. But yeah, that was my only remaining question on that, was if it still makes sense to do staging if we expect like delays and actually pushing to production at some point.
I think the other thing that and Marian can correct me, or Skarbek if this is wrong, is I thought for a long time that staging is not important, right? It's just our staging environment, right? And so why would we care and have DR, right? But I think the opposite is true. If staging becomes unavailable, we can't go to production. It blocks the entire company. So having DR capabilities for staging separately is actually also very valuable, right? So it's not that the only value is realized by having Geo in production. It is already valuable if we have it working in staging, because we actually need those capabilities in that environment as well.
The data is not important, but actually availability of the environment is crucial. So if we lose data, fine. But being able to actually recover really quickly is really important, because everyone stops. Like, it's as simple as that. Whether they know it or not, right? Everyone stops if staging is not working.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to do that then.
Cool. Would you mind writing that in the issue? And when I say the issue, I mean in 2B, so in issue mstuff 34, just like there is a discussion about staging and architecture. If you give us the go ahead, go ahead, we can move on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll put that down.
Thanks, Davis. We are at time. Is there anything else that people would like to discuss? All right. Well, I'll take that as a no. We have some action items that we'll take, and please continue doing the failovers in staging just for your own practice. This is more for Henry, who might watch the recording as well. And we'll see each other next time. Have a good one.